Hey, Danielle.
Hello, hello. Hello, agent.
Welcome to the, yes, hello, agents. Welcome to the agent version of Putting the Real in Real Estate. And today we had two topics we talked about to the public at large. And the first one was there was a recent study that came out that said, like, big surprise, renting is cheaper than buying. And I think that's pretty much why everyone goes into renting, because you don't have to come up with a down payment. You don't have to come up with closing costs. You don't have to um, maintain a property. And so for people who don't have much in the way of funds, I think, that's usually generally considered less expensive. And we, of course, know that's really only in the short term. Um, but I thought it was such a strange thing for the media to jump on, like it was a big surprise.
Well, if I want to put on my tinfoil hat, which I don't often do, because I usually avoid tinfoil, I would say that there is a reason for that, but I don't necessarily think it's across the board. We always say that our favorite thing to say is it depends, and I absolutely do think it depends on the situation. As I was talking, as I mentioned in our live, that yeah, when there are apartment complexes in neighborhoods and in the area that you're looking at, those are built for renting. They usually have reasonable rates, pretty consistent, because they don't want a mass exodus every time. They often want to keep the renters renting, right? Whereas this newer trend over the last 15 years or so of single family houses previously owned and lived in established, home housing that has turned into rentals. Those, I don't know if I agree, are always cheaper.
Well, I also have to say that if you look at the evolution of that, and this is notwithstanding the corporate purchase of them, which is kind of a
foil hat.
yeah. But it does look good on you. You look good in silver.
Not making fun of my hair needing to be dyed.
Just give up. Just give in, like I did. But the the evolution of it kind of came about as a result of the crash, right? People couldn't sell a house but needed to move.
Correct.
And so they leveraged that house. They leveraged that house to purchase another one where they needed to live. And they did that by renting it out. So for many people, they may have just been treading water on the rent. But over time, as rents increased, maybe little by little, and the expenses stayed either the same or increased at a lesser rate, that's where you see the gap, which becomes cash flow. So even that, was a over time kind of thing. Most people, I remember in the crash when they became reluctant landlords and decided that they needed to rent out that property so they could get where they needed to go. Usually they were doing it at the most for what they owed every month, and often at a deficit to start. So, and then, of course, buying might have been cheaper because you could get some really cheap properties.
Correct.
But people were looking at it as a different kind of expense. So I think, yes, always it depends. But overall, I don't think it's really surprising that there's this, data that shows that renting is less expensive monthly. Now, if you looked at somebody over 10 years, I believe that's a very different answer.
Agreed. Yeah, short term, I mean, that is, the last couple of years notwithstanding, when people who bought in 2000 by 2002 or 2022 and 2023 could buy a house or sell a house for 40% more than they purchased it, 2 or 3 years beforehand. That's not normally the trend. That's not normally what we see. So yeah, short term, if it's, if it's just about being somewhere until something else happens, yeah, maybe not. But after those years, it's you've instead of paying $2,000, $2,200 for a mortgage, you're paying $2,000 for rent. Yeah, that's fine, but your rent's probably gone up, but you'll never see that money ever again.
Right.
So there is, even if it's not a full percentage, there's still a percentage you get back, often if you sell your home for any type of profit.
And certainly as realtors, we know there are people who are in situations where it doesn't make sense to buy. I mean, I hope everybody really looks at that and doesn't think, oh, it's always better to buy.
And I think that's the importance.
Yeah.
That's the importance that we need to talk about. We can't be always saying, back to we sit down with the client. What's your needs? What's your desires? What's your game plan?
And if the lowest possible monthly payment is what's important to you right now, then that's what we want to look at. If we hope people are looking at building wealth over time. And that can definitely be done better in a home owning situation, as long as there's enough time for it to happen. All right. And then the other thing we talked about was solar. So we're sure that many of your clients are talking about it and getting knocks on their doors and wondering if it's a good thing. And there are people who, for a kind of the right thing to do reasons, think that this is important. And if you want to do it or your clients want to do it for that, that's fine. They just should know what their trade-off's going to be, because it can be pretty expensive when you go to sell.
Yeah. I mean, just understand, sharing. Well, I guess most of the time, by the time we get to the clients, the deed is done. Unfortunately,
not enough of them ask us.
They might. I was just going to say, unfortunately, people will do what they want to for their home, and are only worried about calling a realtor or talking to a realtor when it's pretty much in their mind they're going to be moving, or there's they're thinking about it. But these type of things, they don't call us when they want to change the color of the garage door or anything else, because that's the homeowner's prerogative. And that's what we said. We said, if this is something that you want to financially or environmentally, politically, whatever, want to do for yourself and for your home for the long term, then do it. But be aware of and helping people understand that it's not an easy road to sell with them on there. If there are payment plans, it's not always an easy sell for, just like a really bright room or, carpeting wall to wall. People might look at it as a further expense. If somebody puts them on and they have to replace a roof eventually and things like that, people, might see it. And I never got a good answer on what happens when they're done with the end of useful life.
Right. And technology moves forward by leaps and bounds. So right now we have giant, heavy, expensive panels that are on roofs. And I can't believe that that's what they're going to look like in 20 years. So
I think I've done this in the past, compared it to a computer.
Mm-hmm.
The Dell computer I bought going to college, 20 years later, was not the computer I wanted.
Yeah.
Or could even use.
Right. Right. I mean, computers, one of the things I'm always saying to my husband, because he doesn't like to upgrade his phone, and I get it. Who wants to, it's a pain in the butt, right? But all of the stuff that goes through your phone gets bigger. So if your phone is at a capacity of now it's 2 years ago, it isn't going to be able to handle all of the information coming into it. And that happened with computers very quickly too. So I remember upgrading my RAM to have more capacity on my computer, and then a year later it would slow down and things stopped working and I couldn't access things online. So I feel that's got to be how it's going to be with solar.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
There's no
getting
doubt
faster
about
and
it.
smaller and cheaper probably. So you've got these tens of thousands of dollars invested in panels. How much sense is that going to make when they cost less than that too? So
Absolutely.
and even like appliances and their efficiency ratings that go up and up.
But the point is, when you see this, should be not necessarily a red flag, but a yellow flag. If you go to a listing appointment, getting as many details about that process, what they've signed, what it says, how much is owed, just like knowing how much mortgage is left over, knowing these percentage rates and how to transfer it and stuff is interesting, as well as a buyer's agent. If you go to a house and those houses have solar panels, you need to be talking with the lender to find out if there's wiggle room, if they have to take over this, and getting information from the agent on what are the details, what is expected of my client if they take possession of this house. And
Right.
beforehand, how long does it take to transfer over the loan, and things like that, or whatever.
Yeah. And I don't think it'd be great if anybody wants to weigh in. I haven't seen any issues regarding paid off panels. So if a seller is willing to pay them off, that seems to work well, right?
Right. But that goes to the hand of if they're paying a check for $13,000. I doubt they got that savings in the 4 years they had the panel.
And know that no buyer is paying you $13,000 more than the house next door because you have solar panels. I think that's
and an appraiser won't give it to you.
An appraiser won't give it to you. And I think that's probably the biggest. It's not just a misconception, because I have heard the solar panel salespeople absolutely outright lie about it and say that it will make you 3% more on the sale for your house.
I've been told that by solar panel sellers.
Yeah.
Can't say I agree with that. I've never given. In fact, I'd say it's a negative.
Yes. So as long as everybody knows what they're doing and what they're talking about, and please, listing agents, find out all this information. I mean, we talk about that a lot, and we know anybody who's listening to us is doing their job, but just feels good to say it again.
All right. Well, that was informative, I hope.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.